So, as has already been brought up and discussed a bit anyway, the school district recently reduced the number of middle school music teachers, which attracted a lot of parent complaints at the board meetings. And I think in the end, what ended up happening, and I know Mrs. Petrie-Barcelona discussed this at a recent board meeting, as she mentioned, I think that they ended up reducing it by just a half a teacher. My understanding is that 3 teachers retired and that you replaced it with 2.5 equivalent. So was that reduction justified? Why and why not? And we're starting with Mrs. Pigsa-Ewan now.
Oh, sure. Well, I've kind of have said a little bit about how I feel about that. As a parent, let's put that I'm a teacher and that I've already said I don't agree that our teachers ought to be providing extracurriculars without extra pay, without a stipend. Our coaches get that, club members, club advisors get that. They should be paid for the work that they're doing. As a parent and somebody who has a child in music, who also supports parents who have children in music, I feel that this was a time when the school board could really show good faith in that give and take that you often have to balance between values and our budget restrictions, or enrollment as well in this case. And that is, we've passed levies, we've passed bonds, we pay to play, we purchase the uniforms, we purchase the instruments or rent them, we pay for the lessons, we have hard-working music teachers who work some months of the year in the evenings, every night of the week. And I think, you know, we show the support to the school board by continuing to fund the schools, and this, it seems now that we're in a position where we're almost in a power struggle. And so little is needed to make that better for the music teachers that I quite don't understand why we just can't go ahead, get that teacher.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You can have an opportunity to respond later if you want.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Barcelona.
Thank you.
Petrie-Barcelona.
That's fine. I actually think that in this case, this is an example of balancing values. And when I talk about enrollment going down, I'm not talking about music in particular. It is our entire district, which means we're getting reimbursed from the state at a lower rate, and we are trying to expand the time between now and the next levy. All of that is to say the proposal came through the administration to rehire 2 versus 3. After not only hearing from the public, but hearing from the teachers, parents, and students, I mean, and those voices were probably some among the most important, it was very clear that that was not appropriate at all. But with an additional person working a schedule, every single class and extracurricular could be maintained. On top of it, the middle school schedule changed. So that did change when some activities were occurring. We have already worked, and coming through right now, we are paying some of those extracurricular positions now. Those have to be negotiated with contracts, and that's part of this plan for this whole year, is to think through broadly the music and performing arts program at Lakewood, how we can do it at all levels, make sure we're deploying the resources, and indeed, if there's that need, and it likely could be there, then we have the resources there to make sure it's filled and that people are being compensated fairly for their time and efforts with regard to music. I am a product of the music program. It was so important to me and my development, my family's development experience. I just want to make sure it's there for perpetuity.
Okay. And Mr. Kaleri.
Thank you. I want to correct one thing first. I was in the audit meeting last week, and I know you weren't there, but our treasurer was pretty clear. We are not having a reduction in state funding for the next 2 years. So we keep saying that, but it's just not true. In terms of the music program, we have teachers running between buildings. We have lost programs. We're pushing programs to after school rather than funding them. We're seeing kids having to choose in the middle school. And I'll tell you, I went and worked with hundreds of companies, good and bad, hundreds of CEOs that I met with. And I'll tell you, every single good company told me the same thing. If it's a priority, we fund it and we go after it, and that's something that we do. And the bad companies were the ones who would say to me, this is a priority for us, but we're going to de-emphasize it, we're going to defund it, we're not going to make it a priority. And that's what we're seeing here. Our community has been incredibly good to us. They've passed 2 levies and a 3rd one for our buildings, and we're turning around and they're telling us music is a priority. It's what we're known for in Lakewood, it's what we're famous for in Lakewood, it's what we see when we talk about Lakewood, and we're turning around and saying we're not going to take care of this at a time when, as I noted, I found 4 different places that we could easily come up with this money and take care of this and refund our priorities, rather than telling the community, thank you for your money, we're going to spend it somewhere else.
Okay, Mr. Einhaus.
Personally, I have been in the arts my entire career. My wife has been in the arts her entire career. Both of our sons were in the music program, and we've been funders of the Music Boosters throughout the entire career of our kids in school. To say that we don't care or we're diminishing the programs is absolutely not true. When we look at the embellishments that are going into the new schools, we are going with locally funded initiatives. The music department at the high school is very robust, and we are committed to having robust programming. But to say that, you know, we need to watch the money, we do need to watch the money. And watching the money is a careful balance of enrollment and resources. You know, we have stated and remain committed to keeping the programs intact and doing everything we can. And as Emma pointed out, we are going to be spending a lot of time over the next year looking at how we can do that and how we can further embellish those programs.
Okay. Megan George.
Yeah, you know, I do believe it is all about balance. You have to take what's happening today, which is we are seeing decreased enrollment in the schools. Population is leaving the city. So you do need to identify where's the budget at and then where we need to be. Lakewood historically has always had a phenomenal music program, and I want that to continue. But we do need to balance. It is all about balance. Where we can fund the program and to stay in line where the budget needs to be. So we're not asking people of the city of Lakewood every year for a new levy. So that's where I feel on that.
Okay. Any follow-ups?
I want to respond.
Okay.
I want to be clear about what I meant by enrollment. And I didn't mean total enrollment of our school district. I meant enrollment in the music program. It was told to us in a presentation at the meeting that Mr. Clary referenced that our music enrollment is down. However, I disagree with those numbers. I think there were some mistakes. And I think that enrollment that year was a product of policies that forced kids to choose between extra math class at the middle school or your instrument, that put parents in a very difficult position to do what is the right thing and best thing for their child. And we can throw around some numbers. I've talked to the music teachers. They're understanding this, that adding a quarter of a teacher at $6,000 would satisfy them. And so I think we need to be careful when we talk about balance. It's also about priority. And I do believe we can cut something else out to fund that priority.
Okay. Mrs. Petrie Barcelona.
So I just want to note that, well, the first thing with regard to Mr. Clary's statements, what I'm talking about is state reimbursement. We are reimbursed from the state per pupil. Yes, the state held us harmless, so to speak. The same money is coming in. We're talking about two different things, so I really don't appreciate the insinuation that somehow that it's not there. So anyway, with regard to the overall policies, I do think, to Ms. Pugzion's point, that is an issue, and that's part of why the schools are looking at this more comprehensively this next year. Scheduling for arts programs and making choices has been too much of an issue, and that is part of why the administration and the teachers are working together this year to try to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future, so that we can potentially expand arts opportunities during the day. During the summer, unfortunately, is not the time that schedules can be redone.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Can I-
You wanted to respond?
Sure. There was a comment made about we're doing all these embellishments to the new schools for the music program, but I guess my question is, then why then are we asking the Music Boosters to come up with $324,000 of their own dollars for their acoustics if we're doing all these embellishments? What am I missing here?
That's the level of acoustics that they're requiring or that they desire, which is above the standards.
Which is what, when we passed the levy, we told people we were going to do, correct?
No, it's not correct.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
We made no comments about specific acoustic embellishments.